I want to welcome you to this forum. The Communities United Political Action Committee takes pleasure in inviting you here and to hope that you learn a lot here tonight that you probably didn't know, that things are being hid from you about the department and about the Boston Police Department, and why a lot of things aren't happening here that are happening in other communities as far as police protection, police-community relations, and all of that. And basically, we had started on that path before, but now it's really gone backwards. I want to introduce the treasurer of our association, Leonard Lee.
Good evening. Billy forgot to mention that he is the chair of Communities United. And I just wanted to say briefly, it's a new and exciting time in Boston. New challenges are emerging. Old problems still need to be addressed. The Black, Latino, Asian communities are coming together in ways that tangibly benefit to all the people in the city of Boston and help us move forward. And we represent an organization that we started almost 2 years ago called Community United Political Action Committee. And one of our focuses are, we were created to give the community of color more of a voice determining economic and political direction of the city of Boston. For too long, the communities of color have sat on the sidelines while others prosper. Good example is, I always give the example of, we want our South Boston waterfront from an economic standpoint. Our goal is simple: give the community of color a real input in determining our destiny and our future of the city. With this in mind, we created a process to evaluate, support political candidates and interests of our community who can best represent our community using an urban agenda created by the Boston Leadership Forum, the New Democracy Coalition, a nonprofit organization based at UMass Boston, and the Massachusetts State Democratic State Committee. We've created a process to communicate to candidates and issues that need to be addressed in our community. We are constantly looking for members and to broaden our reach and give the community an opportunity to be represented in a way that is different. We are not Mamleo, but we support Mamleo. We are not different community groups, but we support anyone where it's in the best interest of our community. I want to thank you and give it back to our chairman.
I want to thank Pastor Wall for opening up the church to us today. Thank you, Pastor Wall. I want to move right along and get this started. I want to, first of all, introduce our moderator, Jimmy Myers. Jimmy Myers has 45 years as a broadcast veteran. He started his career in Boston. He is a multi-Emmy Award winner, National Sportscaster of the Year, one of the earlier pioneers of blacks in radio and TV, and at ESPN and radio stations WBZ and WEEI. You can currently hear him on Touch Radio. So let me just begin. I'll turn this mic over to Jimmy.
Good evening, and welcome to you. I will be brief in my comments. Brevity is something that we most definitely need at this time. I'm a fourth generation member of an organization better known as the Fourth Estate, that is mainstream media. I have worked in their television stations, their radio stations, and their multimedia outlets my entire adult life. I was asked to chair, to host this distinguished panel. I will name some of them for you at this time. They may stand or just raise their hands if they choose. Mr. Larry Ellison, the president of Mamleo. Mr. Ellison is here despite great personal tragedy within his family. He lost a family member yesterday. We are so grateful that he has found the soldier inside of him to soldier on and come to this forum. Mr. Willie Bradley, former Deputy Superintendent retired from the police department. Our featured speaker, a man who I'm sure is going to enlighten you greatly. He is one of the reasons why we are here this evening, Mr. Robert Alvarez, retired Lowell Police Officer. Mr. James Gilden, attorney at law from Mamleo. And last but certainly not least, the elegant lady that graces this podium, Attorney Stephanie Soriano Miller. I want to make a special mention that Mr. Julian T. Tynes, Esquire, the chairman of the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, is here. And to all our distinguished guests, and I see so many of them here, it would take us about an hour to name them all. I will start with just some very brief words. Whether by a few or by a multitude, God delivers. We are but a few at this juncture. This place should be filled. I spent most of my day in travel, yet I found my way here. You are that important to me. I know so many of you. I've worked with so many of your children. So many of you know me as the morning talk show host on Touch 106.1 FM. Along with my co-host Sunshine, who I see. Please stand. But this is not about us. It's about you. It's about a word called respect. It's something that I learned as a very young child in a home as one of 10 children that has followed me my entire life. I was always taught, you respect women, you respect your elders, you respect children, you respect the life that God has given you, every single minute of it. None of us are promised that once we walk out of that door this evening that we're going to ever walk back in it again. One of my prayers at night is that I thank you, God, for allowing me to put my feet back in my slippers as I take them off and put them under my bed. And the first thing I do in the morning is I open my Bible and then I pray. And I say, thank you for yet another day. I don't know the roads you're going to send me. You're the only one that knows that. But the one thing I do know is that you, my God, know what you're doing. So wherever you're going to send me, I live by the words that the will of God will never, ever take me where the grace of God will not protect me. And the same goes for every single one of you. Something you don't know about me, I have about 9 ministers in my family. So unlike so many of them, I'm going to be very short-winded because I need for you to hear from Mr. Alvarez, who I just met this evening. He was on our radio program this morning. His story is so incredibly compelling. I am just amazed and in wonderment as to why that every single bay of that camera, bay area up there is not filled with local and national TV. We'll keep fighting, Robert. We'll keep fighting to get the message out there. So many of you are police officers. You carry guns. I would never ever tell you to go out and commit an act of violence or to break the law in any kind of way. But I would be willing to guarantee you, if one shot was fired in the middle of that Washington street, there would be TV cameras here galore.
Yes.
They would be all up in our neighborhood. Now, these are the battles that I fought in corporate boardrooms where you weren't there to stand behind me all my life. I swore to myself the first day I ever got behind a microphone, I will never trade on my people. And it's not just black people, all people are my people, but with a special emphasis towards people that look like me. I've never violated that trust, not once. I've given up millions in my life and I asked for no claps, no praise, no nothing. I walked this path because this is the path that God gave me to walk. And believe me, many days I've asked him, Lord, I have no idea what you're doing up there, but my faith is that you know what you're doing, and that's the only thing that's important. So let us move. With mainstream media or without, we march forward. Each one of you is a soldier in an army. A Maggie Brown is an army. A young Mr. Thomas is an army. All of the people that I've seen is an army. Minister Don, you happen to be a general. You happen to be the wife of a general, so you're a general as well. And for all of you Priscilla captains, people that I have total faith in, that every day of your lives, you will never stop the fight. Regardless of what happens, you will never, ever stop this fight. We're about to have a new mayor. Relish in that. But hold his or her feet to fire every day until the things in this community are cleaned up completely, until our children have good and safe schools to go to, until our elderly are protected, until our children and elderly can just go out and sit in front of their homes in the evening and just watch children play. I am not going to rest, and I'm willing to give my life for this. You must be willing to give your life for it as well. To Pastor Paul, you and I have traveled so many roads, and I'm sure we'll travel many more. I am blessed to be in this humble house, and I am always a humble servant before my God. We have contacted the police commissioner, we've contacted the mayor, we've contacted every government official in this state and welcomed them here. They want your votes, but you see that they are not here. We will go on without them, because remember, come next Tuesday, there will be a reckoning. Believe me, there will be a reckoning. That's when your voices can be heard. And I don't care who you vote for. I have no stake in that at all. All I ask you to do is vote. Now let's move on with the program. So much has happened regarding so many things. I would like to bring Willie Bradley first to the microphone. He is the former deputy superintendent, retired, as we move quickly down this roster. Willie, that microphone is yours.
Good afternoon, and am I on? Can you hear me?
Try this.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon, and thanks for coming out. And I appreciate the opportunity to come and sit before you and just share my experience at the Boston Police Department. I came on the force back in 1988 and rose up through the ranks to deputy superintendent, and I was in charge of your 911 center for 5 years under Commissioner Evans. My job was somewhat difficult because I had to change the paradigm and basically had to change the model that we used in the Boston Police Department as relates to dispatching calls for service. Had to move some officers out and put some civilian personnel in. Well, that put a target on my back. Under this particular commissioner, I had a problem with him. He was not very fair, you would say. He had identified certain people that he wanted out of off the force. So he and I had several conversations. I used to work with him, by the way, but he was the the chief at Lowell. He was interested in installing computer technology that happened to be my expertise. So I worked to help him in that process, and I thought we had pretty much formed a friendship, but that was actually not the case. So I had a situation where I was up for disciplinary action. I fully expected the commissioner to be fair. He was anything but fair to me. I also retired from the Boston Police Department in 2010. After I retired, I went to school to get my PhD in public policy. And so thankfully, I'm at the dissertation stage now, so I should have a PhD within the next year or two. Thank you. While I was in school, I took a course in public policy. And Larry Ellison pulled me aside and said, listen, we want to do a comparative study on the disciplinary action of this police commissioner. And since you're in school, you're the excellent person to do it. I was like, oh my God, I have other things to get done. So you're not drafting me for this. He goes, yes, you're gonna have to do this. So he gave me a bunch of documents of disciplinary actions that were actually issued by this commissioner. And I took those documents and I created a study where I took the commissioner's decision based on white officers who were disciplined, who committed rule violations, and compared to his decisions on Black, Latino, and Asian officers who committed rule violations. And I was shocked when I actually did the comparative study, and I have a copy of it here. And anyone wants the studies, leave their email address and I will actually send it to you. And I can't call the names in fairness of the officers. I have not spoken to those officers, but I give you an example. We had a particular officer, a Caucasian officer, who went to Savannah, Georgia to enjoy the St. Patty's Day parade. And while he was down there, he got into, he met a couple of girls, females, and he decided that he wanted to be with one of those particular females. He followed her home, and he refused to leave until she actually had intercourse with him. Fortunately, the young lady's boyfriend was actually in the house, and they got into an altercation. Officers at Savannah Police Department was called. They made an arrest. Officer goes to court. He files what they call a nolo contendere, meaning that I'm not going to contest the evidence that this police department has on me. They put him on probation. They send the probation to our commissioner. That officer now is still a police officer in the Boston Police Department. In comparison to another Cape Verdean brother who was actually out at a bar with his cousin. The cousin decided, that the officer decided that he needed to go home because he wanted to work that particular night. And so the cousin said to him, go to the car and I'll meet you later. So the cousin goes into the bar and he has an altercation with a young man. The young man ended up dead, from what I understand. The cousin then walked back to the car. The officer drives him home. By the time the officer gets home, Randolph PD and Boston police officers at his home. They make an arrest. The officer goes to court. Everything is, the officer wins the case. Our police commissioner refuses to give him his job back. This man was out for 5 years, in my understanding, being paid every week. Christmas Eve of the 5th year, this police commissioner sent him a letter to say, you're terminated. The guy goes to arbitration. Every stage of the process he wins, but our commissioner refused to give him his job back. And our question at Mamleo was, wait a second, you have an officer who's on probation because he filed a nolo contendere. They put him on probation, you have the probation. This officer, who's a white officer, is a police officer still. This guy has won every stage of the judicial process, and he doesn't get his job back. The commissioner's response to Larry was, well, the people down south are still upset over the Civil War. So, therefore, he wasn't going to get a good case. So that's only one example that I can give you. I have about 15 of them that is appalling when you look at, pardon me?
Give us another example.
Another example would be a young lady, white Caucasian young lady, goes down to Providence and she gets into an altercation in a bar. This young lady is arrested. The chief, Chief Linsky, drives down to Providence, Rhode Island, and brings her back home, to home, and she gets a couple of days suspension. We have a black female who gets into an altercation or a discussion or argument at a bar. She gets a couple of months suspension and on probation for the entire part of her career. Another good example would be that we had a situation where an officer was in a car situation. He was in a car, he gets into an altercation. He ends up losing his job because the commissioner decides that he did not like the arbitrator's decision. So he challenged it to the court. The court found this little obscure law that says any officer who's charged with anything, it jeopardizes his ability to be a police officer. So that officer was fired. A white officer did something similar. but the commissioner did not challenge the office. The commissioner just suspended him for a couple of days. And my final, this is an important one, my final comparison is that we had a particular officer whose father was on the force for years. He was one of the superintendent chiefs. His name was Dunford. He retired. His son is on the force. This son outright lied in court. And right after the commissioner has promulgated a letter that states that any officer who's caught lying in court will be automatically terminated. This individual was caught lying in court, and he said, well, he wasn't lying, he was just misrepresenting his report. But we had a female individual who was in court, and she was questioned about lying, and he suspended her. So when you look at my PowerPoint comparative presentation, I have at least 15 situations where the only thing that one can actually determine around his reasoning was race. The white officers, if you're white, you get pretty much leniency. If you're a person of color or you're female of color, you get really your head knocked off. And I personally think that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act. That's my opinion, so that's where I am.
Thank you very much. As we move forward, this young woman asked a question in regards to the duality of discipline within the police department. Just let me read this statement to you. Commissioner Ed Davis issued an order that states an employee that has been untruthful during any sworn testimony, termination will be the presumptive disciplinary action. White officer, allegedly, and used excessive force, filed false report, testified untruthfully. Discipline, 5 working day suspension with 2 working days served, and the balance of his suspension wiped off the books. Do I need to repeat myself? Wiped off the books. Minority officer, allegedly used excessive force, allegedly gave false reports. Discipline, termination. Bradley talked about the white female that was involved in a barroom brawl. It was not a fight, it was a brawl. He was being very nice. Disruptive, brawl, wound up going in the street. It was reported on the news, mainstream media. And this young lady, after being picked up and brought back, for the life of me, I'm still trying to figure out, why would I go pick up somebody who is just in a barroom fight if I'm Chief Linsky and I'm going to get into a jurisdiction situation in another state? You don't really have to know the law just to think about how ridiculous this stuff sounds. And you sit back and you just say, what is this? Discipline, 10 working days suspension, 4 days to serve, the rest wiped off the books. Minority female officer summoned for clerk's hearing on alleged assault and battery. Alleged. Charges not sustained by the clerk. Discipline. 1 year suspension, 5 months to serve, the balance of suspension, and lifetime probationary sentence. This is just a small sample of the work that this commissioner has done. And yes, I cannot help but point to his boss, because his boss knew what he was getting into when he hired this man. Because Mr. Robert Alvarez will come here shortly, and he will tell you what the history of this man was up in Lowell. And once you hear this, this is factual. This isn't a fiction. This isn't something someone dreamed up. This is a real life nightmare. And you wonder why the mess that goes on in this city continues to go on. And for any of you who's a Tom Menino fan, God bless you. I drank the Kool-Aid for a while too. But once my eyes were opened, Kool-Aid went off my menu. Next up to the podium, another one of those fighting attorneys. Not you, Jim, sorry. You have to wait. This lady definitely goes first. Miss Stephanie Soriano Mills.
Good evening, everybody. I'll be brief. I want to thank the Communities United for having me here today, and especially want to thank Mamleo for their constant and consistent fight for equality in the Boston Police Department. This issue, I work closely with Mamleo, and I think it's for various reasons. One, I'm obviously an attorney here in Boston, but second is this issue is really near and dear to my heart, particularly because I'm a daughter of a police officer, the first Hispanic police officer in Massachusetts back in the 70s, and the first one to make rank. I was extremely honored to meet Officer Alvarez tonight because his story mirrors my father's, in which there was a fight to ever be able to be recognized, promoted, anything. Everything was a fight. My father was in the police department for 34 years, very small police department, unlike Boston Police. Wherein anything that he did, any test he took where he scored top. This wasn't somebody who wanted favors or points because he was Hispanic. This is someone who scored top in every exam and could not get promoted without a lawsuit. He's made case law in regards to discrimination, and I saw it growing up. I saw how it affected him, and I ultimately saw how he was forced into retirement when I believe, as a Hispanic police officer in a predominantly Latino area, he should have been chief. Instead, that didn't occur. And I see how that affected him, and it bothers me to this day, which is why I fight this fight along with my brothers and sisters in the Boston Police Department. That being said, many of you have worked for organizations and in companies wherein there's a culture. It's like a family. And oftentimes, that culture starts from the top down. And that's why I believe that it's so important that we recognize the culture that the Boston Police has right now under its commissioner. It's a culture of discrimination, of disparate treatment, disparate punishment based on the color of your skin, of your ethnicity, or your gender. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is illegal. It's not just wrong, it's illegal. Now, I know that Commissioner Tynes is here tonight and can't speak directly to any specific cases, but there are dozens of cases before the Mass Commission Against Discrimination right now where officers are saying they've been discriminated against. That once they complained, what happened? They were ostracized, they were demoted, or they weren't promoted, or they were told that they were going against the code of silence, essentially, amongst the brotherhood of the police. So basically what happens is you speak up and you get ostracized, you get, basically you're a troublemaker, you get named a troublemaker. And what that does when that happens is it sends a shockwaves throughout the Boston Police, and you have many officers that are afraid to do what these officers on the table tonight do on a daily basis. And that's a culture. And it's a culture that needs to be dismantled. It's like getting rid of the cancer in order to have a healthy body. Well, who's the cancer? It starts at the top. We have Massachusetts Association of Minority Law Enforcement Officers, who are the voice of officers of color in the Boston Police Department, who are telling the community in Boston that there is discrimination in the Boston Police. And what happens? We have media organizations that want to disparage what they're saying, that want to minimize it by saying there must be some kind of beef between the president and the commissioner. That's absolutely untrue. We know the good fight, and we need to fight against that, and the only way we can do that is by removing the commissioner. And the only way we can do that is by voting in a mayor that we know stands behind that cause. This is an organization that's saying it's going on. It is, ladies and gentlemen, and if we do not remove it, we will continue with the culture that Boston Police already has, and that culture will go throughout Suffolk County and will be in every organization, whether it's City Hall, any department, because that becomes the family. So, and as I sit here today, you know, I do believe that ultimately the fight is fought in the courts, and I agree with that, but it's also fought politically. And I stand by President Ellison and Mamleo when I say it's time for a change. It's time to support our officers of color and women on the police department, recognize that disparate treatment and ostracization and anything of that nature is illegal and it must be stopped. So I'd ask that, as you know, that's why you're here tonight, and just to listen to some of the stories. I mean, if the stories that, Commissioner Bradley just spoke of aren't, well, I'm sorry. They spoke of are astonishing. I don't know what else is, but they're happening every day. So I'd like to turn it over to the President who wants to speak further on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I just want to first start on just expounding a little bit on the case involving the officer of color that was terminated from the Boston Police Department most recently. And this is why it should be important to you, all of you taxpayers here. Okay, that case already has cost the City of Boston almost $2 million. Okay, the City of Boston awarded the complainant who claims that he was beaten by this officer $1.4 million without even trying to fight that case, because this individual had connections publicly. He had connections with political figures. The arbitrator.
Can I ask one question about how long did it take him to bring this case and you know, give this settlement? How many years did it take?
It didn't take years, it took weeks, and that was unheard of, unprecedented. It took weeks to pay out your hard-earned tax dollars. And in the arbitrator's ruling, he ruled in favor of the officer and said he should never have been fired. It was clearly retaliation because this officer had been terminated once before and he won his job back. And shame on you if you're a person of color, you challenge the system and you win. You become a target. You know, that bullseye that you see, the emblem of Mamleo, it is a target, okay? It is a target and they go after it. The arbitrator said in his ruling, the person that should really be investigated is the person who paid out that $1.4 million to Mr. O'Brien, and he called him a liar. He said his behavior that evening is what precipitated the officer in doing his job. That's all the officer did was his job, and he was terminated for it, okay? These cases on average, okay, and the MCAD commission is here, and I'm not going to put them on the spot, they take a long time, on average years. And the commissioner and the mayor, they bank on this. We right now have a case in federal court, it's the Lopez case versus the City of Boston Police Commissioner, for discrimination as far as promotion. That case was adjudicated over 2 years ago. In this February coming up will be 3 years that we are waiting for the judge's ruling. This is after the case has been argued. These cases take a long time. One of the officers who won his job back that they spoke to have been exonerated all along the way. It took him 8 years. 8 years to get his job back. So when we do file suit, it's a long process. A long process. I've been dealing with this commissioner for the last 5 years with very little success. He touts about how his command staff is very diverse in his open letter, because he won't come to an open forum and debate it. He wants to debate us in an open letter. That's just the lack of respect that he has for this community, that you will fall for that. And he talks about the diversity in his command staff people of color. What he doesn't tell you, that none of them are in a position of authority. None of them head up any of the bureaus. And what I mean by that is the patrol force is headed by a white male. The detectives division investigates all the shootings and all the crimes in the city. They're headed up by a white male. The chief is a white male. The commissioner is a white male. And those top 2 jobs have never been held by a person of color since 1630. Okay? So you want a little history here? You need to tell me that the city has changed. And I think it's very disrespectful to women. He sounds like the former presidential candidate, Mitt Romney, when he talks about the 3 women in there like they're some binder. that they are all assistants and they all work under white males. The 3 deputy superintendents, the females that he spoke of in his open letter, all work for white males. They do not run the bureaus that they are assigned to. They're assistants. So women don't fare any better than people of color in this police department. And it is time that the community stands with Mamleo in this, because if things aren't, but let's face it, folks, if I go to work every day, myself and my other colleagues, I'm a 28-year veteran of the Boston Police Department. I thought this type of behavior was behind me. And I come in to work every day and I'm dealing with this. How much time do you think I really have to devote to your problems? And if I go to people that look like me, that are not really in any decision making with these problems, they just want to make sure that they get close to their time with their pension and they get taken care of. Well, that doesn't fare well for this community. Okay, so the community, we're asking for your support here tonight, not just because it helps us. This is not anything to do with labor contracts. We have unions that deal with that. This is about fairness. In the last round of promotions, the police commissioner would want to blame civil service. He's become the police commissioner of blame, not responsibility, but blame. He said in his last round that he had an opportunity, he promoted 5 white folks to police to sergeant. And when there were 9 people of color with the same mark, he said civil service prevented him from promoting any of those black people, that he promoted the white people at 12 o'clock. Well, at 5 o'clock, after pressure from Touch 106.1, as well as Mamleo and other people, he promoted 2 people of color. He didn't need civil service permission because he didn't need it to begin with. They all had the same score. He decided, looking at that list, after there had been close to 70 promotions from that same list, and only maybe 3 or 4 people of color, that it would be a good idea to not promote any people of color. But understanding this police commissioner, folks, this was not the first time he had done that. Okay, from the 2005 exam, there were 2 sergeants and 1 white female who were eligible to be promoted. At that time, there were 0 female lieutenants in the Boston Police Department. We went to him and said, Commissioner, with the lack of diversity in the police department, would you please consider, and there were only 2 or 3 lieutenants of color at the time, would you consider those people for the positions of lieutenant? He said, looked at us. The next day the order came out, he promoted 5 white males and not 1 person of color and not that female, which there were none at the time. Most recently, in the police department, there are 20 plus captains in the Boston Police Department. There's a vacancy that became available recently in East Boston, in which a captain there had some medical issues that he needed to take care of, so they had to put an acting captain there. Now mind you, every captain in the city of Boston is a white male. We sent the commissioner a request asking him, because there were several lieutenants of color who had that mark, he could make them an acting captain temporarily, would only be temporary for a few months. He declined. He felt that he would promote a white lieutenant who had only been a lieutenant for less than a year to that position because he is in favor. This commissioner talks about diversity, he's not. He set up a phony diversity committee that hasn't met in over 9 months. How serious can it be, folks? If we haven't met in 9 months, how serious can it be? If you look at the makeup of the Boston Police Department, it is not reflective of the city. So when we do file these suits, folks, it takes time. From the time that it starts, we're probably anywhere from 6 to 8 years before we get any resolution, and that's if they don't appeal it later on down the road. And then we have 6 candidates that are running for mayor who says, you know what, we want to give you more of the same. You know, but we found out, and luckily for Mr. Alvarez, because there was a pattern with this man. He wasn't serious about diversity. He came here with baggage as it results to people of color and women. Okay? And you're going to hear about that tonight. So I'm asking you, I'm imploring you. We don't tell you who to vote for, but we can tell you, after hearing what you hear tonight, and you think it's a good idea to elect someone who wants to give you more of the same. Okay? The shootings in our community are through the roof. You know, where was our Boston Marathon response? Okay, we had 9 people shot last week. I didn't see the feds. I didn't see a sense of urgency. The police commissioner and the mayor decided to go to church on Sunday in the community. But they didn't do anything about what was going on with the violence here. Because we allow it, folks, and we have to stop allowing them to take advantage of it. We have to stand up for ourselves. I don't owe this police commissioner anything. I go to work and do my job. I work for you. Okay, they say the commission is my boss. God is my boss, not the police commission. Thank you.
We would like to have responses held to the end, if that's possible. We would like to have responses held to the end. I know it's not working. Yeah, I know how to work mine. This one's not working. But my voice is loud enough to be heard. We would ask that you just hold your questions until the end. Okay? We want to hear from you. It's very important. The most important thing is, I want you to consider how many of you, by a show of hands, it's a very easy question, by a show of hands, how many of you people have walked into a church to attend a funeral for some young person that you know within the last year and a half, whether it be relative, whether it be friend, whether it be somebody you know, in the last 5 years? How many of you people done this? Seems like the hands are getting pretty large here. 10 years. Now think about this. I have a mayor that drives past the Mamleo office every single day on his way to work. He is not going to talk to these people at all for at least the last 5 years. But if their grass, if the grass that sits in front of that building to the side of it, you drive by Mamleo, right on Columbia Road, 61 Columbia Road, if that grass is just a little too high, which we got to measure here, they receive citations. This is a man that will not talk to them about the lives that you just put your hands up to talk about, and all the tears that you have shed, and all the pain that so many of you have gone through. When you look at these caskets and see these young people sitting there, yet he's worried more about grass. And I'm not talking about the kind you smoke. I'm talking about the kind you walk on, the kind that cows eat. Got it? But he has a history. We all do. Now we're going to talk about his history. And I want you to remember this, that Mayor Tom Menino knew this history before he hired this man. Marissa Campagna is the attorney for Robert Alvarez. I said, we all have a history. Can you hear me now? All right. Now we want to talk about Ed Davis's history, because history is the barometer by which we are all judged. No matter where we come from, it is a history that follows us. Get a police record and you'll find out exactly what that history means. I don't care if you're in Kalamazoo, Michigan, your Boston record will pop up on a computer. If you have a Corey, you can be in a foreign country and that record will come up. Robert Alvarez, a man that all he ever wanted to be was a police officer. Spent, well, he'll tell you how many years on the police force. He met with Mr. Ed Davis, but there are at least 1 to 2 specific incidents that you need to hear about. And I want you to keep in the back of your mind just these words. The mayor of Boston knew this when he hired Ed Davis. Please repeat after me. The mayor of Boston knew this when he hired Ed Davis. Mr. Robert Alvarez.
How's this? How about now?
All right.
All right. Well, the reason I was invited here was to talk about the lawsuit that I just, it was completed against the City of Lowell. It was Alvarez versus the City of Lowell. And it'll give you a clearer understanding of who Ed Davis is. All right. I recently prevailed in a lawsuit against the city, and the total payout the city had to pay was $642,000.
Could you please give us that figure again?
$642,000.
Ooh, I love those round numbers.
You want to use this one?
Yeah, you got it, sure.
Some of you might have heard me on the radio this morning. I'm basically going to go over the elements of the case. And everything I'm going to tell you There's documentation or testimony to support everything I'm telling you. How's that? Is that better? I'm talking on the mic now.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Yeah, I usually have a strong voice, so I don't have to, I've never used one of these. But the catalyst for the lawsuit was in 1997. And at that time, I was a team leader on the SWAT team, the Mamleo SWAT team. I was a firearms instructor for the SWAT team and for the Lowell Police Department. I started it was a catalyst for starting the motorcycle unit in the Lowell Police Department. And I taught DT, and that's basically where my career was going. And I had been a police officer 10 years in 1997. And while I was working the street, I got called to back up some officers who were involved in a felony car stop with some suspects who had a sawed-off shotgun. It was a home invasion. And when I arrived, I was one of the last people to get there, but I was one of the most experienced people there, so I ended up supervising the felony car stop. And I organized it, it was going well, we were getting people out of the car, it was done in a professional manner. We were almost complete with the car stop when a junior white officer, Thomas Kennedy, and his father is the city auditor in Lowell, arrived at the scene. And for whatever reason, he was very excited and started screaming and swearing commands over the officer I had as the contact officer. So at that time, I only gave one verbal command. I said, only one man gives the commands. That's the only thing I said. And Kennedy became quiet, we regained control of the scene, and we moved forward and placed the suspects in custody. At that time, the scene was secure, and I wasn't mad at him. I was just like, I knew he was new, and I approached him and said, have you ever done a felony car stop? A little disgusted I was. And his lips started to tremble, and his eyes started to fill up, and he was about to start to cry. And I just walked away from him. And he got very angry and started coming, he ran after me and yelling and swearing at me to turn around. And I walked over 100 feet with him on my heels, and I finally turned around, and he was still in that, about to cry, starting to cry, and he punched me in the chest. And I just was looking at this young man falling apart, and I said, get away from me, and then he punched me in the face. And he's, I think he's like 5'4", kind of a pudgy young man. And I just grabbed him in a bear hug, like you would hold a child having a tantrum. And I held him against the car and I said, calm down. That's the end of the incident. And the sergeant, who should have been, a sergeant who was on the scene farther away on another street. Like I wasn't a sergeant, I was a patrolman. I'm the one that supervised that car stop. This sergeant, Mark Buckley and Thomas Kennedy, their families are very close. Told me he ended up wanting to say he wanted to write reports. And from there, the end of the scene was secure, we can continue the search. Within 48 hours, it's my second shift coming back, I was approached by the commanding officer and was told I was off the SWAT team, I was out of training, I was off the motorcycle unit, and I was going to be suspended. And I said, I didn't do anything wrong. We do an investigation, and I want an investigation done. And no investigation was ever done, even though I requested it. It's department policy. If you're going to suspend someone, you have to do an internal affairs investigation. It was never done. So I was suspended and I was removed from training, and I never returned for the rest of my career, and I just retired in 2010. Subsequently, I ended up, here's another interesting fact is, the felony car stop, one of the officers that I was supervising there was Jack Davis, Ed Davis' brother, okay? So I ended up taking my case to civil service, where I lost because of the amount of false testimony that was given by officers. And that was shocking to me because I wasn't expecting that. Then I just continued to march on, and I ended up filing my lawsuit using Marisa Companion. So once the lawsuit was filed, I'm not going to go into like how they tortured me for 10 years because we'd be here all night. I'm just going to stay with the main facts of this case. But once the lawsuit was filed, Ed Davis had to be deposed for the incidents that occurred and his actions. And he was under oath and also signed a certificate of the penalties of perjury on the deposition. He stated that I was the aggressor in his investigation, that I was the aggressor in the Kennedy incident, and he had done a complete and thorough internal affairs investigation, which the facts of the case as it came out, there was no internal affairs investigation, and I was not the aggressor, based on the reports and witness testimony. And the witness testimony was Jack Davis, Ed Davis's brother, said I did absolutely nothing wrong and said I was always professional and a solid police officer. Davis based his discipline of me on the officer who wasn't there. So, as the case went on, it went to trial, and the city, to support Ed Davis's actions against me, basically they used like 3 incidents, and one was desecration of a dead police officer, and that I refused to work with a state trooper, and my conduct during the Kennedy incident. As far as like the refusal to work with a state police officer, that was flatly denied because I worked with him all night. There was no documentation. There was nothing there. It never happened. I never refused. And then the disturbing thing is that there was a plane crash. I don't know if some of you remember. It was in 1996. And it was 5 police officers were killed in that plane crash. They were all my friends. 2 of them were on the SWAT team with me, but one was a very close friend of mine, Bob Marciano. And that's the body that Ed Davis says I desecrated. Now, Ed Davis testified that I had taken the hearses were at the airport hangar. They were all brought back from Canada. And apparently there was some kind of like argument. I was not there. I was organizing the motorcycles. But Ed Davis basically said that I took command away from the 2 chiefs and the SWAT team commander and took the casket and desecrated his body. That's what he testified to. The 2 chiefs that were there and the commander of the SWAT team, once again, flatly denied it. It never happened. Okay? So in this case, these are the 3 things that they tried to support their actions against me for years, destroying my career. That I had desecrated a body police officer, complete lie. That I refused to work with the state police, complete lie. And that I was the assaulter in the Kennedy incident and actually hit him. Complete lie. Over the years, I just continued to do my job. You know, like someone said earlier, it's like, as police officers, Ed Davis is in our chain of command. I respect the chain of command, that's how things get done, all right? But I worked for you. I worked for the American people. And like I said on the radio earlier today, it's like, I took an oath to defend the Constitution and the American people when I was 17 when I joined the Marine Corps, and I did it again when I became a police officer. And I continue to do my job, and like I said earlier, there's no expiration on that oath. And that's why I'm here today, because this man has absolutely got no business being a police officer. I just want to demonstrate to you that Ed Davis is the Bernie Madoff of law enforcement. He really is. And I'd like to point out another disturbing lie that I actually came to realize when I was working in the Lowell Police Department. He credits himself with lowering the crime rate by 60%. Based on my observation and the words of supervisors in Lowell, it's like that was absolutely false. Who gave the newspaper or whoever that statistic? Where did that come from? It came from Ed Davis. So that's one of the reasons he got the job here in Boston. It was that he was so effective that he had lowered the crime by 60% in Lowell. I don't believe that. I didn't experience that, and I don't believe that. So that's my story, and I need people to hear this. This man has no business wearing a badge.
What you heard was facts. It's not conjecture, it's not opinion. These things actually happened. And I still ask you the question I asked before this man spoke. How could Thomas M. Menino, mayor of Boston, hire this man knowing this case had occurred? James Gilden is the president, the attorney for Mamleo. He has dealt with a situation face to face with this commissioner, where this commissioner actually told him, and one, William Sylvester, F. Mamleo. Period. I didn't lie about that. That was said. They actually filed a charge against this, which of course blew away. The charge just went away. This is a man who's supposed to be leading our city, a city that's loaded. Our streets are loaded with blood of our children, while he persecutes minority police officers for picayune things, and the organization of minority police officers because their grass is too long. And you wonder why we should all be angry, why we should all be storming City Hall and telling ourselves, we're not gonna have this again. Whoever that mayor is, and for those pictures that you have sitting in your hands, remember on election day, and you better go home and tell your friends, these are the people that wanna bring this man back. James Gilden.
One minor correction is I actually was not present when Billy was confronted by the commissioner. It was only after Bill Owens had asked some pointed questions at the community meeting after the 3 young people were slaughtered up in Mattapan. And the commissioner confronted Billy and had those words, you know, F Mamleo, as long as you're going to support Bill Owens and what he has to say, I'm not going to talk to you. Now we've written to the commissioner and asked for a sit down. We wrote him a very nice letter, never responded. We wrote to the mayor. As a matter of fact, Larry Ellison and I sat down and drafted a letter to the mayor and said, Mr. Mayor, let's sit down, just the 2 of us, no press, have a beer and let's talk about what we can do in Mamleo to improve the police and the relationship with our department and the community. Never got a response. Now I'm just one of 2 lawyers that works on a regular basis with Mamleo. Larry Kelly is another attorney, an experienced attorney. Unfortunately, he got injured, so he's it's an old football injury. Most of what I do, aside from being an advisor to Mamleo, is dealing with the it's turned out to be dealing with people who are trying to become police officers, people of color who are trying to become police officers. And we have this culture of discrimination that Stephanie spoke of. And it starts at the top, and it's very subtly permeates through the whole department. Let me give you a few examples. And all of these people that I'm talking about have taken the civil service exam, have gotten marks high enough so that they have been given a conditional offer of employment. So this has nothing to do with not being good enough to pass the civil service exam. Let me give you one example. Young man just came back from Afghanistan. He had done a tour of service in Iraq as a combat engineer. He came home, he stayed in the service, and he got redeployed out to Afghanistan. He was a combat engineer. His job was to drive heavy equipment out into the boondocks and help build fire bases. They were ambushed, they were subject to snipers. His unit was ambushed by a Taliban unit. He was wounded. His driver, his passenger was also wounded. He was given accommodation, he got a Purple Heart, and he came back just in time to answer the card that they get from civil service and apply and go in to fill out his application for background inspection. He was told by his recruit investigator, after completing the investigation, you might as well withdraw your application. He said, why? What have I done wrong? I got good marks, I'm a wounded veteran. He says, you had 7 speeding tickets over the last 10 years.
What?
So he was still in the mode of the military. He said, yes, ma'am. He withdrew and once he withdrew, then he came to us, and unfortunately, there was nothing. We contacted the mayor, we contacted the commissioner. No one would or could claim they could do anything, nor would they try to do anything. The department previously had a psychologist because all of the applicants go through psychological testing, and there's several levels that they can go through. That psychologist was so discredited that they were forced to get rid of her because she had lost all credibility up at the Civil Service Commission when she bypassed people for psychological reasons. So the department, in their wisdom, searched far and wide. Now, Boston has some pretty good mental health workers, pretty good schools of education, schools of psychology and psychiatry. They went out to California. They found this guy who on paper, and he was a man of color. On paper, he had very nice credentials. He worked for police departments. He had never worked screened for individuals. It was all for police departments. And I had him on the stand a couple of times, and I'd swear he had never been near an inner city except to fly over it. He psychologically flunked one young man from Dorchester who told him after reviewing his test scores that, yeah, I had been sad at one time in the past because 2 of my friends had been killed while I was in high school in drive-by shootings. From which the psychologist inferred, oh, this young man is involved with gang violence and he has very poor, he doesn't have any judgment, so he shouldn't be a cop, so he bypassed him. The Civil Service Commission overturned that. Another young man was from Vietnam. And as you know, there are sections of Dorchester that are very heavily populated by Vietnamese. And they put a special list on of those people that had passed the exam but were Vietnamese speakers. And he was he got as far as seeing the psychologist, who flunked him because his English wasn't good enough. Now, this young man happened to work for the city in a capacity that required him to carry a walkie-talkie and to be in constant touch with the dispatcher, and he was able to perform his job on a walkie-talkie just fine. His English was good enough for the Boston Traffic Department, but according to the psychologist, he was psychologically unfit because of his English to be a police officer. That's the kind of decisions that are made. That's the kind of people that are picked by the department, under Davis's command, to screen our young people. And then you wonder why the last class that when it came out of the academy had 5 black men.
And the significance of that, because, you know, in 1970, they graduated 6 people of color in that class. Okay, and here we are in 2013. In the last probably 500 hirings, probably about 50 have been people of color out of 500. Okay, so folks, we won't even be up here talking in a few years. This is why it should be equally important to you what's happening to us.
Could you also point out, there's this large story, and it really disturbs me because I was blessed with parents that taught me so well. I always did well on standardized tests. You know what they are? We all go through that little thing of standardized tests, things that have nothing to do with everyday life. The police test has very little to do with actual decision making in the field. And then we have a newspaper like the Bay State Banner, if I could call it a newspaper. Some of you can make your own opinions. But the bottom line is they said Mamleo's problem is that they haven't helped their people take the exam. Well, let me stand here and tell you, I did the investigative work. Every single score of minority candidates that were high on that list were higher than some of the people that were promoted above them. Am I correct when I say that?
Yes.
Thank you. Minister Don, before we throw this open to questioning, you were there at the beginning to a degree of Mr. Davis's reign of terror, I'll call it. You were on a committee that helped bring this man here, and I think it's only fair that you get a chance to address this audience. You understand? You can do whatever you want.
Well, to those of you who are here, I did not come here expecting to say what I'm going to say. But from everybody I heard up there, some memory came to me. I'm a little old, and I said to me, myself, and I said to me, myself, and I'm compelled to ask them to have something said by me. Just sitting here, to those of you in this audience, I might have a little problem with my memory, but there were 3 incidents that you need to know about concerning everything that these folk have said. I was asked to be on a commission by the mayor to find someone to take that job. And of course, I wanted to find somebody that I felt would do the job and do it right from all over the country. The one that I wanted was a woman, a black woman from Detroit, I think. And it was turned down. Billy, what was the fellow's name in Washington that was a play?
Ramsey.
Ramsey. from Washington, D.C. He said, under no circumstances will I come to that town. I'm telling you, I might be way up there in age, but it's coming back to me. There was a black woman, I can't remember where she was from, but her qualifications was on the rooftop. Davis called me after the terrible explosion on Boston Street and asked to meet me in Dunkin' Donuts. Oh no, I'll meet anybody in the highway or the byway. And he had 2 black officers with him after the incident on Boston Street. And I still said, what did he want to meet me about? Did he think that there were some crazy folk that would do that? No, we spent money contributing to what happened on Boston Street. I made sure there was a FOI hat and an MGT hat, that means Fruit of Islam, and the other name for the women, because of what happened, because that's not what life is all about to me. What I'm saying, brothers and sisters, I was attempted to be used. We have good respect in the community trying to do what is right. But I had a problem with a very devious person in my life. In politics. He took out a pen and said, here, write down whatever you want and I'll give it to you. Yeah, politician offered that to me. And you know what I did? Anybody got a pen? Here, Billy. I took his pen and I did this. I said, it ain't got no ink in it. All over this city, we've been had, we've been bamboozled. It's about time we did something about it. I used to address the, what is it called? The academy. Yeah, many times. But when things started to surface on what was going on in this community, I refused. Because I'm not going to be involved in that. There were plenty of officers years ago, and I'm sure that many of them were people that you all know about in that panel. But all of this has gone by and gone down the drain because not enough people stood up, and we got to stand up now. We got to stand up now. Thank you very much.
So much of our history stands before us. Please do not drop the ball this time. Remember, you're going to have to face your children. They're going to grow up. And one day, they're going to ask, Gee, Mom, gee, Dad, what did you do when all this was going on? You see, I'm not going to have to worry about answering that question to any of my godchildren. or any child that comes under my care, I'm gonna say I was a fighter. I fought every single day for you. And too many of us cannot say that in regards to looking at our children right now. This mayor will leave office in about 107 days. Not a day too soon, as far as I'm concerned. May he go away and may he never come back. Never. But I'm going to tell you this, because I see a gentleman with his hands up. I'll hand you the microphone. I am not going to vote for anyone who's going to allow Thomas Benito to return to his castle and kingdom in West Roxbury and continue to run the city of Boston while he puts his feet up. And that person is a shill for this man. I know politics. I never wanted to be a politician for one reason. You see, I got a bad issue with the truth. My parents always told me you have to tell it. Because if you don't, somewhere along the line it's going to come back to you. So, if that said, it's time to hear some of your questions, and this gentleman has his hand up.
All right, first and foremost, good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
I want to thank everybody also for coming out. For the officer from Lowell, $642,000.
Yes, sir.
Tremendous amount of money.
Oh, yeah.
Not enough. Not enough. I'm a retired Boston police officer, and kind of actually embarrassed me to say that, because of the nonsense that I went through. Similar in probably exactly what you went through. Had nobody, well, had nobody to stand there, okay? Mamleo has a leader. That's what Larry is here for. And I'm actually proud to see finally that lion that we have sitting over there at 61 Columbia Road is actually not a paper tiger, but actually what it is, it's a lion. And we need to stand behind it. Although a lot of us aren't here today, everyone in this room knows 10 people.
That's right.
And everybody knows another 10 people, and so on and so forth. That gives you a significant voting voice. Now, geez, I'm Native American. I'm surprised I'm not seeing Miss Warren, or whatever, whichever name she's going to use this year. She said that she was going to come back to Roxbury and support us on any kind of minority issues. I don't see her as cowardice as she is. I don't see any of these current elected officials. Consalvo, okay, Murphy, even Dan Carney, all the rest of them, they are seated in offices right now. This is a major significant issue. And who cares if the Globe and the Herald, who by the way subscription rates are going down anyway, aren't here to cover it, okay? As people of color, we've always done things by verbally passing information on. So as we all leave here today, let's let that word also resound out like waves upon the earth, okay? And we'll know exactly where we can stand. I think it's absolutely wrong what was done to him. I think it's absolutely wrong what's been done to black, female, minority, Boston police officers, and even law enforcement officers. Okay, I was also an elected official of Mamleo. I took my time, I decided to stand up, and I got the backlash for it, but that's okay, I'm still standing. Okay? And what we have to do is, we don't need to stand with Mamleo now because this is one little political significant time. You better rally around them and you better protect them. Because they're your only voice in the country. And for the black officers that are on the job, and you know exactly who you are, you've done the exact same things as your white counterparts have in your own neighborhoods, and shame on you. Okay, so let's also tell the truth about that too. We didn't come into this system of what we call a political government, but anybody that thinks that the Boston Police Department is not politically based, we're blaming Ed Davis, okay? It's not him. It's not Paul Evans. It's not even before him Mickey Roach. It's not even before him Joe Jordan. Every single police commissioner throughout the city of Boston has been monitored, has been groomed and has been dictated by the mayor of the city of Boston. Let there be no question in your mind. So, even though we can't get rid of these figureheads that are department agency heads as far as the police commissioners, we most certainly we can kill it right at the head. We can get rid of the mayor. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. And if we're not gonna get a mayor that's gonna do what we want, that's okay. We will put somebody in there that we do want. And the question I have for you, Larry, is simply this. I don't want to hear, I want the community's support. I don't want to hear, we really need you all to come out. I want you to give me a definitive answer to this question. What do you want us to do? How can we help you? What do you want us to do to make it work? Do you want us to make phone calls? Do you want us to take and go down there and protest? Do you want us to write letters? Do you want us to beat up on these people that we politically vote for? What do you want us to do so that we can help you to make sure that your organization doesn't fall down? And the reason I'm saying this is because you got the Mass Association of Minority Law Enforcement Officers, you got the Boston Society of Vulcans, they represent the black firefighters, you get the Cambridge African American Police Officers, which represent the Cambridge Police Officers, you've got the Mass Minority State Police Officers Association. Ladies and gentlemen, we shouldn't be having these black organizations here to protect blacks on our jobs and our interests if the people that are in charge are doing the right thing and they're not. But they are the voices for us. And I want to thank you, Larry, for finally coming up, speaking up, and standing out. And we don't need to let him stand it on ourselves. What do we need to do?
What do we need to do?
I think George laid it out, and I'm going to be very simple. All of the above.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well, you covered a lot of what I was thinking of. Yeah, my question was, when you say support, what does that look like? You know, when you say stand with Mamleo, what does that look like? What does that sound like? But to take it even further, I would like to know, what radical approaches do you want us to use? What radical, like what do you want us to do that really is different? Now, before you answer that, I want to say that my name, I already said that. I am a part of the Black Economic Justice Society, okay? And I'm here with our members here. And we really do want to do something about it in our community. Now, the other thing I'd like to ask, and I know you're going to answer that, you know, I don't mean to step on any toes, I really don't, but I'm going to be truthful with you. I do have a problem, a beef with many of the black officers who are not outspoken about the dirt that they see the force doing when it comes to folks in our community.
Yes, amen.
It's like you're running. I'm a resident, I'm educated, and I can see the injustice. I can see the inequity. Now, I'm here to fight on behalf of you, but I need you to have the courage and be outspoken. And if you are, that's great. But there's a lot who aren't. And I need you to do the same for our youth, for our residents.
Well spoken. Mr. Ellison.
Well, Jimmy had asked me this question many times, and I tell people this is the answer, because at the end of the day, I am still a law enforcement officer. And I say, anything that we can do within the law, okay, that's what we would like to do. If it's protesting, if it's calling the police commissioner and asking why he would send an open letter but would not attend such an important meeting as tonight, why the mayor would not attend or send one of his representatives, right? Why would they not attend a meeting and hear from you? I think the most important thing you can do is help us by not electing any of the candidates that you see on the form there tonight who have said that the values in crime and education, it's not important to them. It's not important enough for them to do their homework, All this information that you've heard tonight was readily available to them. They pointed to one incident, the Boston Marathon, as to why Ed Davis was their hero. And I asked them the question, all of them, what can you articulate to me what he did during the Boston Marathon that was so spectacular? Because the rest of the city was burning at that time. There were shootings going on, and I think Jamal Crawford at Blackstonian has done a fantastic job of keeping up with that. Why hasn't that gotten the same sense of urgency that the violence that takes place in certain parts of the city? And I applaud those people for standing up and making sure that their community is safe. But unless the commissioner ran the marathon, there's nothing spectacular that he's done that I've seen there.
Briefly too, just to go back to the culture and to Ms. Williams' question about black police officers and officers of color treating people in the community a certain way. I don't want to speak specifically to any officer, but what I can say is going back to that culture, if you speak up against discrimination, you speak up against what's happening in your own department or against something that may have happened in the street, and they're then not promoted, not put in any specialized units, ostracized as someone who speaks against their brothers, that sends shockwaves. And who ends up getting promoted? Those, unfortunately, that go with the flow. That's why you got to change the culture and get more of the officers that do stand up and fight against the way things are, to get promotions and advancements in those areas. That's not going to happen with the current leadership.
Just 1 second, I also want to chime in on this, because I think what you see here tonight is radical. Very seldom do you see active and retired officers talking about what happened internally in the Glass Palace. So, and I think you should not lose sight of that. I think the next thing that you should not lose sight of is that our commissioner frequently talk about community policing. Community policing, community policing. Well, you cannot have community policing when you do not respect the people of the community that works in the police department. It starts within. So what he's doing internally eventually will come out of the doors of the police department. You will see it in the way that officers respond to crimes. You will see it in the way that murders are solved in our community. It's no secret that when someone commits a crime in South Boston, it's resolved. The fact that he's not here is appalling, because when that girl got killed in Southie, he was at that community meeting, but he can't be here. So it manifests itself in that way, is that when you ask for his audience, he doesn't show because he doesn't respect you, just like he doesn't respect the people that are colored and working in his police department.
Let it also be pointed out. This is very important. Let it also be pointed out that the same commissioner went before a crowd in South Boston and received a standing ovation when he told this crowd, we got the right detective, we've suspended him, and we've already trickled this all down and broke it down to a flat-out lie. The detective that was suspended without due process. Something that has never happened in the history of the Boston Police Department. Because Southie decided we needed somebody, and Ed Davis gave them a sacrificial black lamb. Now, for the good sister here to ask, how radical do we have to be? As radical as we need to be. Because see, I reached the point, if we have to occupy City Hall, then let's get together and just go occupy his office. They did it on Wall Street. They did it right down here and spent millions of our dollars in Boston occupying. And for the good black policemen who are not asking to break any laws, just make sure you don't come in breaking heads. Just make sure you just gently escort us with our handcuffs to jail. Because I am more than willing to go to jail if I know enough people are going with me. Sunshine, you have no choice. You're going. And a bunch of other people are going too. Because it's reaching that point. It might just come to that point. So good black officers, not the ones with the handkerchiefs on their heads, good black officers just say, look, I'm not going to beat up my people. I'll arrest them, I'll do my job, but they're going to be put in these wagons and taken away gently and nicely. And we're not going to fight. We're just going to occupy. I love the word occupy. It worked.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
My name is Carol Maruzzi. I'm also known as Steve Lynch. I'm the person that was in the Steve Lynch commercial that started that commercial out with the hard hat underneath, pulling up the boots and everything. And I'm standing here because I have complaints. Now, I did the commercial because, first of all, I consider myself an American. I consider myself a Bostonian. I am not black, I am not African American, I am an American. And that's the way I look at it. So I figured doing a Steve Lynch commercial could do nothing but bring us together. But it didn't. Because years ago, I had a problem with Mayor Mamleo. And my problem was, he wanted something that I had. I own property in the corner of Bolton Street and Geneva Avenue. That lot right next to 5-Star Oil. Well, the mayor would come and he would park his vehicle there whenever they wanted an event, even though I gave him permission not to. And the police officers would do details, park their vehicle on my property, have the dogs walk and go to the bathroom on my property. And every time I would ask them to leave, they would tell me to kiss there. And then I would say, well, gee, maybe I will. So I would go down to the district police station and complain. And they would bring me into a room. It was Captain Lee at the time. He'd bring me into a room and say, oh, you don't want to do this. A police officer can't file charges against another police officer. So I said, okay, I'm going downtown. And at that particular time, you had a female that was a commissioner. She had no rights at all. Because what ended up happening was that the mayor wanted my property so badly that he would have my fence knocked down. He wouldn't allow 5-Star Oil to harass me because I was a woman by myself owning property. And the mayor would tell me the only way you're going to do anything with that property is by going through me, selling me this property, selling Jim Hunt that property. And Charlotte Ritchie was standing right beside him. And Charles Yancey was standing a couple feet away. He didn't want to get involved, but he knew what was going on. So the point that I'm making is that every time I try to sell that property, and if you know the property, then you know that for sale sign has been there many times by different realtors. They couldn't sell the property because every time I tried to go to 10 Mass Ave to get a permit for building, they would say, don't say that number out loud because your property is red flag. They want your property. So every time I tried to, I would pay my real estate taxes, they would give me a bill and I would pay it. But the bill was for 6 months from now. The bill that I wanted to pay was never paid. So they kept adding interest on it, and every time I would go to the mayor's office and complain, his secretary, I would hate to say a white woman, and I'm not prejudiced because I'm married to an Italian man. Well, we're getting divorced, but nevertheless, you can't call me prejudice. The point that I'm making is that when I addressed her very nicely, I said, there's a problem with my bill. She goes, oh, you have a beef? That's just too bad. You already paid it. Get out. And I encountered this several times. So I would have meetings with Jim Hunt, which was the mayor's right-hand man. He was in charge of environmental services. They would have me in the office. And then I would contact my union. I'm a local 537 piper, HVAC piper. First woman of color in the state of Massachusetts, 18 years strong. Can't even get a job. We don't want to talk about that right now because this is the forum about something else. But I kept going back with Jim Hunt. And each time I would go back, they would lower the asking price. Lower. And then it got to a point in which, gee, my taxes was going up. They were on my property doing surveillance and everything. They wanted to park their vehicle on my property so that the oil could leak and so they can come and say, oh, we gotta test your soil. Sorry, we can't do anything with it. So the mayor told me, the only thing you can do with this property is sell it to me, or you're not going to do anything. So I couldn't sell it because no one wanted to buy it without a permit. I ended up losing the property. And how did I find out? I did my taxes. And the woman looked it up on the computer and said, oh, no, the city took your property because you're back taxes. Well, they were billing me for taxes I had. I wasn't paying my taxes, my current taxes. So there were black officers and there were white officers. And none of them wanted to stick up for me. So I know there are people in here that are running for office right now. And if you want my votes, because I have a major, major following, no one's getting my vote right now. I thought Barrows was a good man, but he's on that list. He's done. Charles Ritchie's not getting my vote either because she was right there and nothing was done. Charles Yancey's not getting my vote because he can't decide whether he wants to be a city councilor or a mayor.
Charles Clemens.
Clemens, I don't see him. He's not out there now. He don't want the position. He just wants his name out there so that he can get the position another time. Felix Aurora, he's a charmer. Marty Walsh, that's like calling the police on the police because my union is making Marty Walsh's commercials. So if I get a problem with my union about a job, I'm gonna go to Marty Walsh's best friend? I don't think so. So, can you all, use panel, everyone in here, can we all together come up with one person that we can vote for? Because I don't see anything out there. Thank you.
Charles Clemens. Over there.
Remember, this woman talked about a piece of property that the mayor wanted. Isn't this the same mayor that's selling off property as he's leaving office? Isn't this the same mayor that has millions of dollars of development that's going to push a lot of people further and further away? And isn't this the same mayor that's talking about 30,000 housing units, where that mean is $75,000. How many of you people here make $75,000 or more? Good for you. Well, I guarantee you this. You're going to be one of the few people that live in there, because there's nobody else here that's going to be sitting next to you. You can be sitting in the midst of a bunch of strangers. That's the bottom line. My co-host in the morning is Sunshine. She has a question. Sunshine.
Y'all know me, I probably have like 5 questions. But to bring it back to the discussion that we're having here, there are several things that I could probably go down the line and ask each panelist, but I think I'll try to tie it all in together. I know that we have the sheet here that shows all of the candidates for mayor who have blatantly said that they would keep Commissioner Davis. The question that I have that I think is equally as important are those who are kind of bordering the line of saying, well, I'm not so sure, I kind of want to think about it. And whether or not you know that, Larry, if there are some who have not committed a yay or a nay.
There have been several candidates in the beginning that said that they would keep Commissioner Davis. The numbers were actually higher. We, within the last week, gave them the last option, is that your commitment still, and they've agreed to keep him as commissioner. These folks that we have there have said that Ed Davis is their person if they become the mayor.
Okay, so these are all the yeses, but everyone has, so all the others have said no.
There were several others who were on that list originally have backed off and said that they would reconsider a lot of points. We're not asking them to make a decision about the police commission. What we said to them was, knowing what you know, are you still willing to offer that job to Police Commissioner Davis? And the answer was yes. Councilor Royal was at our Mamleo membership meeting less than probably a week or so ago and said he wanted to keep Commissioner Davis because he wanted him to start community policing. I'm like, well, what's he been doing for the last 7 years?
So